Perfect. So welcome everybody to the Minor in Law Information Session. We're very excited that you've joined us today, and we're happy that you're here so that we can share information for you. This session is really for you and is meant to be more informal than formal, because we want you to be able to ask questions as they come up. Well, we will have a question and answer session near the end, but don't hesitate to use the function here in Zoom to raise your hand so that we can call on you. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I want to briefly talk about the agenda for today. We're going to do a welcome. I'm going to introduce you to our faculty director, Professor Gable, here in a moment. And then we're going to talk about, what are your desires in regards to wanting to study law, why you would want to choose the minor in law program at Wayne State University. And we'll talk about the benefits and the advantages to a minor in law at Wayne State. And then certainly, I'm sure many of you are wondering, what are the requirements to obtain that minor in law? And then what are the next steps? Now that you've learned everything you want to know about the minor in law, how do you pursue that program? And then we, again, like I mentioned earlier, we'll open it up to Q&A. So for those of you who don't know who I haven't interacted with, my name is Nikki Taylor-Vargo. I am the director of the Non-J.D programs at the law school, which does include the minor in law programs. And joining and presenting with me today is Professor Lance Gable, who is our faculty director for the minor in law program. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over with him for just a few seconds here so that he can go ahead and say hello.
Well, hi, everybody. It's good to be here with all of you. I'm looking forward to meeting you today. As Nikki mentioned, I am the faculty director of the minor in law program. I teach at the law school. I've been here for about 15 years, focusing on a bunch of different topics, but my main area of focus is health law courses. So when I teach our law students, I do a lot of courses in health law, including public health law, bioethics in the law. And also I teach torts to our first year law students, but I've also been teaching in this program, the Law and Harm course, which I'll talk a little bit about later on. Really looking forward to getting to know all of you and answer your questions today.
Perfect. Thank you. So let's talk about what has brought many of you here today. If you feel comfortable enough to go ahead and unmute yourself, can you potentially share with me, what is your desire for wanting to study law?
I'll go.
Thank you.
I just want to have like background knowledge in law. Like I don't want to go in depth, but just I feel like the minor will give me that, like just an understanding or like solid knowledge of it, I guess.
No, that's a great reason. I think we can all attest to the fact that law has in some way interjected itself into our lives, right? Either personally or through maybe someone that we know. So that's a great reason for wanting to study law. Any others? Thank you for going first.
It is unmuted.
Anthony?
Yes, my name is Anthony Austin Sr. Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
I've been wanting to go to law school all my life, and hopefully that I can make it now. I've been at Wayne State since 2017, and it's just been a passion of mine. I wanted to study law and be able to practice law.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. So some of you may be here because you are interested in the long term in applying and attending law school and practicing law. This certainly is a great opportunity for you to get your feet wet to find out, what it could potentially be like to take a law course. Anybody else feel comfortable in sharing? Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and go through some reasons. So earlier, we had indicated, to get a better understanding about law in general, because it does affect every part of our lives. Law can be intellectually challenging, definitely. Oftentimes, those who, know or practice in the law area, it can be financially rewarding. There's certainly growth and opportunity in finding out more about law and how it intersects with your current area of study. There's certainly prestige surrounding individuals who know about law. It's definitely a dynamic environment with diverse perspectives. I think this is probably one of the things that I appreciate most about my own journey within law, is recognizing that we all have different perspectives. You know, it's not necessarily just black and white as we might think. And this can definitely be personally fulfilling. And the last two are probably the biggest reasons why we do this, and that's to advocate and help others, as well as, you know, studying law allows you the opportunity to change the law. If there's, you know, laws that you don't agree with, or that they think to be amended or changed, you know, since they were originally put in place, this is a good way to start that journey. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Professor Gable so that he can talk to you about why a minor in law here at Wayne State University.
Yes, well, thank you, Nikki, for that great introduction and setup. And I want to kind of build on some of the things that she was just talking about, and to go into a little more detail about some of the opportunities that come with this program. Obviously, getting a minor in law can be a pathway to a lot of different types of opportunities. And I wanted to highlight really just three of them in particular right now. So the first is that being involved in this program and taking the courses along, not just the courses that we offer at the law school, but also the broader electives that are offered in different departments around the university, really allow you to begin to understand how law intersects with other disciplines. And one of the things that you'll learn in this program is that legal studies, legal education, and just the functions of the law itself have a lot of interconnectivity with other disciplines. And so depending on what you're studying in your major, which department you're in within the university, if you're in the School of Business, if you're in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, School of Social Work, College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts, all of which we have partnerships with, you're going to be studying your major in one of those other fields. And you're going to be able to see how this legal education really corresponds with that other discipline, how it intersects with it, and how a lot of these legal topics and issues are really important to understand if you're going to go into any of these other fields. And so even if your ultimate goal is not to practice law, although I know for some of you it is, but even if it isn't, having an understanding of how law intersects with your other discipline of interest that you're studying as well can be a really powerful thing, and can allow you to be more successful and more impactful in pursuing that other discipline. The second area that I wanted to highlight is, and this is probably particularly important for those of you that are thinking about possibly continuing on and going into law school and eventually becoming a lawyer. But one of the things you really get out of these courses and out of this program is the methods of thinking like a lawyer, of understanding law in a really deep analytical way. The courses will help you to develop skills in logical and critical thinking. We spend a lot of time developing oral and written communication skills, which is something we do in law school as well. But these courses will give you a kind of a taste of what that's like, and a sense of what it's like to be in those law school courses, and develop those skills that are useful in law, but also useful in a lot of other areas as well. And also, I should mention that part of that is also learning substantive knowledge about the law. So the courses you'll take in the minor in law program teach you these skills, but also teach you a lot of substance about the law, and give you something of a foundation to build on if you end up going and taking additional law courses down the road. And then the third category, one really important opportunity that you can get out of this program is, regardless of where you're going with your career, what type of goals you're pursuing down the road, having this minor on your degree makes you stand out from others. It differentiates you from other undergraduate degree holders. You're going to be able to point to this program, which is a really unique program, as something that is a really standout part of your education that differentiates you and gives you a different understanding of some of how our society functions. One of the really important things about a legal education is that understanding law helps you really understand how our society works in some really important ways. And so that can help you stand out, and to have that on your CV, to have that on your transcript, it can be really helpful in opening doors down the road. And I mentioned that this is a unique program. We're the only school in the state of Michigan and in the Midwest to offer a program like this, which is an undergraduate minor in law with courses taught by law professors from our law school. And so, because we're bringing a legal education to the undergraduate level, and we're allowing you to have access to and the opportunity to learn from directly our legal experts at the law school, we think this really sets us apart from other programs, and truly gives you a unique opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Gable. I just wanted to build on that a little bit more and expand on some additional benefits and advantages to the minor in law program. And one of those is that the minor in law program will help build your personal brand. For those of you who aren't familiar with what your personal brand is, it's really what makes you you. Your experiences, your education, your thoughts, your beliefs. So it will help you build your personal brand, and it's something to think about as you go out into the job market, and that you are basically selling your skills and your talents and those things, and that's part of what you can use. And as Professor Gable indicated earlier, this is an opportunity for you to really set yourself apart from other individuals, is to have this minor in law and know how it intersects with your major area of study. You can apply your new thinking skills, not just in your LEX courses or the other courses that are required with your institution or your college or school, but also in all of your other classes. So that's just an added benefit. This is also an opportunity for you to begin building your legal toolbox, especially for those who have an intention of going and applying to law school later on. Again, it allows you the opportunity to stand at the intersection of law and your educational discipline. And I think that even once you get those basics of law, yes, you'll know how it intersects with your educational discipline, but I think that you'll also learn how law intersects with other topic areas. And then the last thing is basically make it what you want it to be. There's always that part that is, you get into it, or excuse me, you get out of it what you put into it. So this last part is really all about you and what you want it to be. So with that, I do want to turn it back over to Professor Gable, who is going to talk to you specifically about the LEX courses.
Yeah, so I wanted to take a couple of minutes just to talk about some of the substance of the core courses in this program. So as Nikki mentioned before, and I know she's going to elaborate on this more later as well, the way the program is structured is everyone who enrolls in the minor in law program takes the same 3 courses at the law school, and these are offered by our law faculty and really provide kind of a foundational look at some really core legal topics and the legal system. And so I just want to spend a minute talking about what the core courses are. And then in addition to that, you'll be taking other elective courses depending on which other undergraduate department you're in. So those elective courses might vary, but everyone takes these 3. The first is called Law and Social Context. And this is a course that focuses on, among other things, how law has become an important social institution in our society, introduces some of the basic legal concepts and some of the basics of fundamental legal analysis, but then goes from that and focuses on some core topic areas in law. And this course in particular has focused on how property works. So property rights, starting back with common law rights to property, and newer adaptations of that through changes in statutes and other developments. And so you talk about things like, what does it really mean to own something? How can we legally recognize that kind of ownership? What implications does that have? What kinds of things can't be owned and why? And so you get into some important understandings of how that area of law works, but also some deeper philosophical conversations about the importance and the role that these rules play in our society. The second course is called Law and Harm. This is actually the course I teach, and so I could talk a lot about it, but I'm just going to give you a really short summary. This course focuses on how the law handles harm, and how the law can be structured to either retrospectively hold someone accountable for harm that they've caused. And so from that perspective, we look at the tort system, which are civil lawsuits, people suing each other in court, or the criminal law system, where the state is prosecuting people for violating laws and rules that we've set out as being crimes and criminal offenses. But it also looks at how the law can be used prospectively to try to prevent harm in the future going forward through efforts at regulation. And so this semester, for example, we're talking a lot about the COVID-19 pandemic and some of the powers that the government has to try to prevent harm going forward, and some of the limitations on those powers as well. And so we've been focusing on all of those issues, and you get a really good sense of a really broad scope of different legal powers, different legal approaches that can be used to deal with things that cause harm. And the third course is called Legal Procedure. This course focuses on a little more of the process side of the law. How does the lawsuit work? Once a lawsuit is filed, what are the different steps that happen as it winds its way through the process and eventually into the court system itself, and through to its resolution? One of the really important aspects of this course is that, in addition to talking about that procedural process, the process of legal practice, it also goes into some really important underlying concepts that are essential to having fair process. So concepts like due process and equal protection, some of the similarities and differences between civil cases, criminal cases, and administrative proceedings. And so these three courses really cover a lot of ground, and they provide a strong foundation for some of the other elective courses you would take to satisfy the minor in law requirements. And with that, I'll turn it back to Nikki.
Thank you, Professor Gable. And I just wanted to mention, I was fortunate enough to sit in on Professor Gable's class in the fall. In the winter. Boy, time is flying by, right? In the winter. And what I wanted to just share with all of you here is that, certainly there are, topics in subject matters that are going to be covered in every course. But the nice thing is that Professor Gable was actually great at being able to pivot at the last part of our Law and Harm course to talk specifically about COVID-19 and how that affects our law. And it sounds like he's carried that over into his course this semester. So know that, yes, there are topics that you have to cover, but certainly your faculty are going to touch upon what's currently happening in the world now and, how that affects law. Okay, so now what I know everybody is really interested in is, how do you get there? So what I want to talk about briefly here is I'm going to go over the requirements for each of our partner schools. And the first one is for fine performing and communication arts. And we're actually very lucky to have Miss Mary Grenfell here with us. Mary, would you mind just giving us a virtual wave or saying hello?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. Thank you so much for having me, Professor and Nikki. I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely. So Mary is your contact person if you pursue the minor through the fine performing and communication arts. I will be sending a copy of the slides to everybody here in attendance. So that way you do have the contact information for everybody listed here. So as Professor Gable indicated earlier, all students, regardless of their major, are required to take the 3 LEX courses. And for the Fine Performing and Communication Arts, you are then required to choose 3 courses from the list of communication courses that you see here on your screen. Mary, is there anything that you wanted to add specifically to the requirements for your school?
I think in terms of the program, the minor itself, at least from the CFPCA perspective, I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking on any other major besides ours, but it fits in really well for our students. And one thing that you all, students that are interested in this minor that you're thinking about, you all may or may not know that every student in the state of Michigan has to complete at least 120 credits for a bachelor's. So that's U of M, Michigan State, that's all of us. So the courses that you'll be taking are counting towards that 120. So it makes it a really nicely formed step to complete that program. In our college, specifically the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts, a minor is not required, but oftentimes students do need credits to meet that 120. So this minor is perfect. I can't tell you how many students are talking to me interested in law school, and now they have kind of an outlet to look at that as opposed to more of a traditional political science or something like that. So I think it works really well. Students are taking COM 2110 either way if they're a COM studies major. So there is an opportunity to kind of get some coursework under your belt that you may or may not have been expecting either way. I know and again, I don't want to speak out of turn with other programs, but for College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, for example, if you're an English major, history, psychology, you do need to either pursue a double major or a minor. So if this is something you're looking at, I try to confirm with my students that you may not be looking at extra courses, if that makes sense. A lot
Right.
of students are worried. Do you hear that as well, Nikki, or Professor?
Yeah, exactly. So there are definitely what I would mention to students is you want to talk with the academic advisor who is the contact for the minor in law, but there is certainly opportunity for you to potentially, the word I would use is double count. So for example, there may be some courses that you are required to take for your major that will also count towards the minor requirement. So instead of 6 courses overall, maybe it's only going to require you to take, 4 to 5 courses to get that minor. And as Mary indicated, if you are going to need additional courses anyway to reach that 120 credit hour requirement, this is definitely a good investment of your time.
Absolutely. Thank
you, Mary. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So the next partner that we have is Liberal Arts and Science, and as Mary had indicated earlier, students who are in class are required to choose a minor. So this is definitely a minor that you could consider. In addition to the law courses, students in Liberal Arts and Sciences are required to take the PS 3100 course, the American Legal Systems and Processes. And then you will choose 1 course from the 3 philosophy courses that you see here. And then there are a long list of approved College of Liberal Arts and Sciences electives that will count towards the requirement for the minor in law. Now, this is where you're probably going to find where there's definitely opportunity for some double counting. The elective that you choose may be part of your major and also may be able to count towards the minor requirements. Alicia Ortez is the academic advisor in class, and there we've listed her phone number and her contact information. The next partner that we have as part of our program is through the School of Business, and they actually have 2 routes to the minor in law program. There are some students who have business majors and want to pursue the minor in law, and then there are students who are non-business majors but are wanting to pursue the minor in law through the business school. So for those who are business majors, you will take business law 1 and 2, and then you will have to take 2 business electives. Now remember, this may look like it's one additional course beyond 6, but actually it's not, because business law and ethics is a required course for your business major anyway. For non-business majors, you have to take business law 1 and then 2 approved business electives. Again, there's a list that you'll want to check with Salvana Evans, who's the academic advisor. She can talk you through that list. There's also some additional requirements in the business school. So you, in any major, you must have a minimum GPA of 2.5 in order to apply for the law minor, and then you must maintain a minimum grade of C in all of the required minor courses. And lastly, we do have a program with the School of Social Work. In addition to the law courses, you are required to take social work and law, as well as social welfare in the United States. And as you can see here, the social welfare in the United States is already part of the requirements for the BSW. So here is an example of where you can double count. And then there is an approved social work elective that you can choose from a list of approved electives. Again, the School of Social Work has some additional criteria. You must be admitted to the School of Social Work pursuing your BSW in order to declare the minor in law program through School of Social Work, and you must maintain a cumulative GPA of a 3.5. Jeffrey Jones, who unfortunately was not able to join us today, is the contact person in the School of Social Work, and his contact information is there for you as well. So what are the next steps now that you know a little bit more about the minor in law program? It's very important that you meet with the academic advisor and the contact person in your degree area about your desire to pursue the minor in law, so that you can review the requirements and start building those courses into your plan of work. Secondly, once you've gotten that determined, you want to declare your minor in law. And this is the same process that you use for declaring your major. We just want to make sure that we note to you that when you declare your minor in law, make sure that you're choosing the appropriate unit. As we mentioned earlier, the minor in law program is with 4 different partner schools or colleges across campus. For example, we have had some individuals who inadvertently chose the minor in law program through the School of Social Work when they actually meant to choose it through arts and sciences. So just make sure that you're choosing the right minor. And last but certainly not least is you can start enrolling in those courses. Now, the LEX courses, you do have to have a junior level status to take the LEX courses, okay? Those are the law specific courses, but the other courses that are part of your major, you may be able to start taking those as early as, sophomore, maybe freshman, I'm not sure, but you'll have to check with your advisor. I do want to indicate to those of you who are just interested in potentially taking the LEX courses and don't necessarily have the time yet, because maybe you're already a junior or maybe even you're a senior, but you just want to take the LEX course just to further your knowledge, you're welcome to do that without having to declare the minor and pursue those requirements. So with that being said, we would like to open the session to any questions. I see that we have a couple of questions here in the chat. If you give me just a moment, I will take a look here. And then if you would like to ask a question, feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. So a comment that was in the chat section is someone is very interested in the minor in law, but is also concerned about the challenge of the law classes specifically, in addition to, it looks like maybe they're double majoring. So, certainly a valid concern, and I think I might pass this off to Professor Gable to talk about, the difficulty of those LEX courses, maybe what to anticipate, and to reassure you, I guess is what I'm looking for. So, Professor Gable.
Sure. Well, I think that the kind of information, the kind of approach you're going to see in the LEX classes are while a little bit different from some of the other courses you've taken, it's not going to be so different that it's going to present a huge obstacle to most students to being able to handle the work or to learn the material. I mean, these are 5,000 level classes, so they're obviously more advanced than introductory courses. And you'll see some of the kinds of approaches that we use in these classes do reflect some of the approaches that we use in law school classes. We might, some of the instructors might use a Socratic method approach where we ask the students questions and have more of a dialogue or a discussion. But these classes are not meant to be especially difficult. They're meant to be really an introduction to some of these legal topics. And so, the workload is, I think, very reasonable. And I think that the classes themselves are, they are designed with undergraduates in mind. It's not like being thrown into a law school course with law students who have a couple more years of experience in these kinds of classes. So I think they are very, they're very much in line with the kinds of courses you would be taking at a 5,000 level in other parts of the university. And I think to the extent that they're different, it's only because the subject matter is a little bit different and the approach might be slightly different. But in terms of expectations and in terms of content, it's going to be in line with other classes that are at that same level across the university. And I think in terms of just the people who are teaching the courses, we are well aware that this might be a little bit different than what you've taken before, and are intentionally making sure that students have an opportunity to ask lots of questions, to get lots of feedback, and we provide lots of feedback to make sure that you're understanding the materials well. And the last thing I'll say is that I think these classes are really a lot of fun. I think if you're interested in these topics, you're going to really enjoy them from a substantive perspective, the kinds of things you're learning and the kinds of issues we're covering in the courses.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you
Yes.
2 questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
So from an advising standpoint, and forgive me if there's material that we've spoken of with regards to this question, but do the 5,000 level classes, do all 3 have to be taken first and then they take their 3 electives, or can they interchange? How does that work from a planning standpoint?
So that's a great question. Thank you, Mary, for bringing that up. First, I want to mention that you don't need to take the LEX courses in sequential order. For example, one is not a prereq for the other. So if you wanted to take LEX 5020 before LEX 5000, you can do that. The specific answer to your question is that as long as students are a junior level status, they can take the LEX courses. I guess what I would say is what's most important is that they need to work the minor in law courses into their plan of work to make sure that they're able to take those courses. And that may mean that they're taking the elective courses, the required courses through their major first. Or they could take them after the LEX courses. I think the only barrier would just be that they have to be a junior level status. And I don't want to, I guess I don't want to use the term barrier per se, but the reason that we have a junior level status is because they are 5,000 level courses.
Sure.
And we do want to make sure that students have had that experience and that maturity of those first couple of years before they step into that course.
Absolutely. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I am a junior and I have like a 3.98 GPA, and I've always wanted to take law, but I didn't think that I would actually be able to accomplish that. But I'm a film major and I'd love to be an entertainment lawyer as well. Would these courses, if I decide to go to law school, would they help me at all with the credits from these courses, or is this just for our own edification?
Professor Gable, you want to answer that one?
Sure. Well, the credits for these courses, they don't go towards law school credit, and so if you've taken these courses and you've gotten the minor in law degree, obviously that's seen as a real positive when you're applying to law school. It's going to be looked on really positively in terms of your application. But the credits themselves don't actually count toward the JD degree. They're separate requirements that are required for that degree.
I see.
May I add to that as well?
Yes.
So I advise communication studies and public relations, but my colleague Jessica advises film. So she and I can certainly work with you in terms of taking a look at the minor and making sure that all of those courses count towards your 120. So effectively, they are counting towards your bachelor's. It just sounds like they wouldn't count towards your JD or your law degree, but either way, they'll count.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
You're welcome, Michelle. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Off of her previous question, besides doing the minor in law looking good on your law school application, what other benefits does it have if we're most likely going to end up taking these courses again in the law school, or we do not take these courses at all in the law school?
Well, there is some amount of overlap between some of the topics that are covered in these courses and the topics you would get in the first year of law school. The major difference is that what you get in law school is much more in-depth. It's much more focused on reading cases and really drilling down into the legal theory. So that's what you're going to get in the first year of law school. These courses are, I mean, they are designed as undergraduate courses, and so you're going to get a lot of the kind of substance and the overview of some of the issues, and you will read some cases, but you're not going to get quite as in-depth of an understanding of that you would get if you were actually a first-year law student, just because first-year law students spend more time on each of these topics. And so, for example, the law and harm course, we spend a few weeks each on the tort system and on the criminal law system. In the first year of law school, you would take a full semester course in each one of those topics. And so, some of it is a matter of depth and the extent to which you get into the topics. But I will say that, I do think one advantage of taking these courses before taking law school courses is that you're going to have a greater degree of familiarity with the concepts than someone who's coming in who hasn't taken these courses. And so it is advantageous, but there is some amount of overlap that you'll see in some of the topic areas. What's going to be really different is the depth and the extent to which you cover the topics.
That's exactly right. And Jenna, what I might even refer to it as is what you're getting in the minor in law is really the 30,000 foot level view of law and what defines law and those nature. And as Professor Gable indicated, then the depth part would come as if you were, a first year law student in law school.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? I see we have a comment here in the chat. Does the minor in law work with the Kickstart program? Cameron, can you follow up with me? I'm not sure I know what the Kickstart program is. If you would, Professor Gable, are you familiar with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I assume she's referring to the 3-3. So we have a program with class, and it may be with other units in the university too. I'm not sure. That allows for a student who has completed 3 years of their undergraduate degree can then start in law school sooner, and the first year of law school counts along with, basically counts as the 4th year of that undergraduate degree. And so it's a way for students who know that they're interested in law school to get to law school sooner, essentially a year sooner. And it's a great program. It's been around for a couple of years now. I think that the answer to the question is that it would be permitted. There's certainly nothing that would prevent you from taking these courses and getting a minor in law while you're also doing the 3-3 program. It's just a matter of whether you have enough credits. If you're able to take the required coursework in that 3-year period, you definitely could do that. And I don't see that there would be any reason why not.
Okay. Cameron, do you want to, I'll go ahead and follow up with you outside of this information session, and we can talk in more detail, if that's okay. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I just had a clarifier on that last question. And it's a little bit off topic, but is the Kickstart program that's something that's specific to the law school? If Professor maybe Gable could answer that.
Well, the 3-3 program that we have with class, and again, I'm not sure if I'd have to go back and check and see if we have that with any of the other schools and colleges around the university. That is specific to law school, although I do think there may be some other programs at the university that have a similar arrangement with med school, and there might be some other programs like that as well, but I don't know enough about the details to really give you much more than that. But I think there are a couple of programs around the university that use a similar approach where you can indicate early on in your undergraduate major that you're interested in pursuing this advanced track type program. And then, the way that it works with law school is you would after your third year of undergraduate courses, if you apply and are admitted to the law school, then you can start in that fourth year in the first year of law school, and that will count toward your 120 undergraduate credits. I think there's a similar program with the medical school. I don't know if there are others or not, but that's the model, and that's basically how it's structured.
Thank you.
Yes. Christopher, if you're interested in more information about that or have more questions, let's you and I also touch base outside of this meeting.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Any other questions before we end today's session?
There's another one in the chat. How can a minor in law benefit you in the workforce alongside a supply chain major? I think that's a great question. I think that one way that it really could be beneficial is that, again, understanding the basic contours and foundations of the legal system are useful and to provide context and understanding for the kinds of laws and requirements and regulations you would need to be able to understand, if you were working in, coordinating supply chain, facilitating those kinds of areas of professional work. I think that I think there are a lot of distinct kinds of areas of law that you might want to be familiar with if you were working as a supply chain expert or a logistics expert. And I think that what these courses will do is give you a sense of what some of the underlying topics are, and then it might prompt you to investigate some other areas that might even go beyond what's covered in these courses, but things that you would want to know about. So understanding how liability works, understanding how the regulatory infrastructure works in some different areas of our legal system are going to be relevant to that area of professional practice. And so I think there would be some advantages, but again, these courses are not going to necessarily get into a specific examination of the issues in that particular field. But what you can maybe do is combine that with some of the elective courses that you're taking, and expand your knowledge in that way as well, in addition to that.
Perfect. Thank you for catching that. I missed that. And the other question that we just had there, Michelle, I just shot you a message really quickly. If you want to touch base with me, I'll put you in touch with the right people for your specific question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions we can answer for anybody? These are great questions. Thank you so much for coming today and talking with us and learning more about the program. Again, if you have any questions after we leave today, our email addresses are there on the screen for you. I also would encourage you to reach out to the advisor that is listed for your particular major. And hopefully we'll see you in the near future.
Ms. Vargo, I have a question for Professor Gable before you go.
Yes.
Professor Gable, does your law and harm course deal with senior citizen abuse?
We don't specifically talk about that, although I would say that some of the principles that we cover, including, we look at issues related to, how civil claims